Everybody, attention for Wells, please.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'll just say a few words by way of introduction. I'll have a little PowerPoint, which I hope not to use too much. Wells and I have been conferring about how much time it takes to do a demo, which I should remember because I think 5 years ago I did a natural edge. That was way before all this audio-visual technology. Although Larry, I think, has a video on his website, if I'm not mistaken.
It should be up on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah, YouTube.
On YouTube.
Exactly.
Or standing through the woodwork, I think.
In any event, yes, Sue is right. I'm from Chicago, more properly Evanston, Illinois, home of Northwestern University, and they're playing in the NBA today, or tomorrow. Miraculous recovery of a pretty bad sports program. Anyway, I've been turning since the millennium. I bought my lathe in the year 2000. Seemed an appropriate time to start something new. I've been a law teacher at Northwestern University since 1967, and as the years rolled up, I was thinking of getting away from that process and getting to something that was more like 100% enjoyable rather than 80. So, and PowerPoints, which you will see, mine is rudimentary. I don't think I've done one since 14 years ago. My last class was in April of 2010. So I've been retired, I've been turning, joined the Chicago Wood Turners, which is a very wonderful group. It's been around for quite a while. It has about 150 members. So there's lots of opportunities to learn, and I've tried to take advantage of every one. When I first joined, I knew that I wanted to take private lessons. So I found a person who I thought was the best, and he lives an hour and a half from me, but I said, "Will you give me lessons?" He said, "Yes." I said, "How much?" He said, $200 a day, and that includes Vietnamese lunch prepared by my wife. I said, "That's a deal." And so I took 4 days of lessons from him. His name is Vir.1. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's most famous for thin wall turning and piercing. He took off from a turner named Frank Sudal, and just amazing thin turnings he does for the primary reason that you can easily pierce them with an air tool, a dentist tool, a 3,000 RPM tool that will bog down if the wood is much thicker than about a 16th or 3/64. So I took 4 days of lessons from him, and first lesson was box making. So I'm going way back to my beginning times of how to do this. I've done quite a few. I wasn't aware that I was going to do this demo when I left Evanston, and once I agreed, I went, "Oh no, I got all these boxes at home. I could have brought them, I could have shown them." And then I said, "No, wait a minute, my daughter lives here," and family gets lots of gifts. So I brought a few of her, well, all of hers, and a couple of mine that I've done since on the desk here. So feel free to come up and look at them. I might refer to them if they're being passed around to get a view for all of them, all of us. Okay, so let's begin. The title of my PowerPoint is an overview of the process. Friction fitted means, unlike Morgan Taylor, who does the screw thread, which I've never done, these are things that are friction. The friction can be tight, it can be loose. We'll try to demonstrate how to do the tight. That's where all the money is in this business. So tips, tools, tricks that I've picked up over the years. And the goal of this whole demonstration is to show how to do this, basically. I got a camera view of that.
Who, me?
You're on. Okay. All right, so this is a Ben Pho design. He claims this is a Vietnamese vessel shape, and he likes to use that and liked to use it. Unfortunately, he died a few years ago. But anyway, the idea is get a piece of wood that has some visual markings that are obvious. I always like to line those up and see how close they fit. And this is the second one of these I made, and it landed in my son-in-law's collection. Mostly because it is not a pop. It's not. And the first one I did was a pop. That was just beautiful. You could lift it off. Well, it wasn't quite a pop, but as you lifted it, the bottom, lifted the top, the bottom would come with it and slowly drop off. So it was like, that's elegant. I don't think I've ever done that since. So don't get excited. We're not going to try. We'll try, but never make it. So this process involves, I'm going to spare you, the roughing tool. You're taking your rectangular block, rounding it off, parting it at the right place, which we'll talk about, and then working serially on first the top and then the bottom. And they sound kind of backwards, but for good reason. It goes better this way. Okay, so I hope to show you some of the tools that I will use in any box making process, and then get to the fit process and the final process. Choice of wood. This particular piece of wood, Wells will know the real species, but it's called canary wood. And of all the woods I've used cocobolo, I've used walnut, I've used ash. Some woods I don't even know what they were. This is the nicest for box because it has these beautiful little lines and an array of colors that you only see pop out when you finish it. My favorite finish is lacquer sanding sealer, which you put on the lathe and you get the job done fast. So, I refresh my memory just a bit. In the PowerPoint, which I'm not going to dwell on, there'll be a lot of information about sources. I'm like, you got to have ideas. You got to think of what your box, what you want it to look like. And the beauty of box turning is the variations are virtually infinite. Primarily because you're working with a small surface and you can add things very easily. And everybody has a different version of the same box, but they're all different. So I just put up some references. Richard Raffin, and is one of the well-known turners. Chris Stott has a book out. The third book is Turn Boxes. And then this book here, Bill Bowers, I have that with me, and it can go into the raffle Larry, if you wanted to. I'm not saying it reflects all my views, but it's got a lot of photos anyway of mounting and hollowing, etc. Other places, the AW magazine, the British magazine, Wood Turning, tremendous number of ideas, but the websites are easy. Go to Etsy, go to some of the Facebook things, just plug in wood-turned boxes, and you'll be totally surprised. For just general recap of what's going to happen today and some other tips, there are two YouTube things. One is Ray Key, another one of the stars of the box making world, and Kurt DeHeer, who is associated with Craft Supplies, also known as the Woodturner's Catalog on the web. And he's got 6 or 7 videos, and one of them is turning a box, basic box turning. So, as I talked about the design, the color of the wood, the shape of the wood, the shape of the grain, pattern. And you also want color, you're thinking of hardness. This is a nice wood to, very soft and easy to turn. Moisture, Wells has talked about that forever in terms of changes of dimension. And the dimension that we're seeking is this, fit of that. And I'll show you how I got to this part, and then hopefully show you how to get to that part, or maybe even better. Canary wood, I did find the whatever the proper name, Central Lobium. It's available at Craft Supplies, by the way, for a not unreasonable price of $25 for a 3-box segment. So when you're thinking about all this,
the harder the wood is better or the softer?
I tend to like something that's easy to turn and not hard. So ash is hard. There are just a variety of woods that are going to make it tough for some of your cuts to be smooth. This is sort of like butter. It just, you got to watch yourself if you gently go in. So when you think about all these things, think about what are you going to use these for, you know. Jewelry, we talked about, you do want a small, loose fitting box. So the earrings would go in there, and while they're being prepared with a hand on the ear, they're easily accessible. Not all of these are easy to lift off, but some are, that is. This is a style of a box that is actually, I recommend it as a way to get started because you don't have to do a fit other than making sure you've got this isn't bigger than this. So you imagine how do you get this, that's important. When you part off, you will have your base over here. That's going to be your part. Now you've got this piece. You will put a mortise in first, and now when it comes time to fit this to this, put this on your leg, and assuming you've made what you want inside of this, the little shelf, then you practice and practice as you cut down and make this smaller until you get a fit. Okay, so anyway, think about the shape, get some ideas, think about your wood, and let's get working on this. As I said, this project, I've disassembled part of this. You'll see that I don't have the twigs. I do have the stone. So Ben Fo's approach was to try to make an optical illusion, which really doesn't work, but it's cute, to say, how did that thing grow in there just like that? And how were you able to turn it? I've never had anybody ask me that, so it isn't going to work to gather attention. So anyway, looking at that, you see it. I'm going to talk a little bit about tools. And to get some of these decorative elements, there are a bunch of tools that you want to know about. To do beading, and you can see that box, that's an ash. That was going to be a Beads of Courage box until my daughter saw it. It's ash, and there are beads on it. So how do you get those beads? Well, fairly simple, but you've got plenty of opportunities to do this. This tool is an Ashley Isles high-speed steel ground this way. You can see the angle of it. and you use it with the flute up, surprisingly, given the sharpness of the points. And hard to believe, but it will actually produce these beads. Start on one side, one wing of the tool. See that? And then start the other one carefully. Get your sides and then rotate back and forth until you're creating a bead. Another way to do it, it's not too bad of a tool, expense-wise, to get. This one is, I really like this because it's just hard to goof up with this. That thing, that's dangerous. This is what's called the 3-point tool. And you can see that it's just a piece of steel, high-speed steel, ground to a point with 3 sides. You start with the up, the top part, and start in, push in hard enough to get the grip, move over a distance that will look good as you round off, and then just start using the sides, and you'll be very surprised at how quickly you can turn a bead and how nicely they are, and you can do it without a catch. This tool does not catch. There's some other, this is a dual purpose tool. So that one and that one.
Oh, sorry.
And these are tools that you will use to create the two or three different things. In some boxes, I like to have a separation between the top and the bottom, a visual separation. This tool is just terrific for that. It's a piece of round steel. Take it to the grinder, carefully make a nice thin projectile. Oops. And that's the shape of it. It's a modified parting tool, basically. I usually use cork to keep it from getting damaged. And then, I think there's one more. All right. So, actually, I'm going to get off my schedule and try to deal with the fit. So, basically, to start all of this off, you have your round piece of wood. You have to part it off to get a top and a bottom. And to do that, you'll want to mark it at some surprising points. But anyway, the concepts you need to be aware of, other than the piece of wood being the right length, is to recognize that there are several distances that could get you confused. One of which is you always want a tenon. So start with this tenon. We've talked about how you match the tenon to the jaws so that you get strong holding power. Use kind of a junk carbon steel throwaway tool, grind it to the angle of your jaws, and make your tenon with that angle here. Now, that, let's say, is the bottom. So you need room for the tenon. I say you need room for the ending process of this turning. You need room for the tenon that goes under the lid of the top. And you need space for what wood your parting tool is going to take out. And I'm going to suggest using a thin, very thin parting tool so that you don't, if the grain is not perfectly vertical, you can easily match them up even though some of the wood is gone. And you'll also have this loss of grained, that putting it in and out, that's all gone in terms of vision of the lines on the outside. So when you mark, make sure you're accounting for the tenon, some extra holding power, your inside of the lid, the loss of parting, and then the top. And you'll want it to come out to this post. This is a post that we're going to try and get a piece of wood to glue into that. And hang a stone, a center cut donut stone on top of it. And again, you need your other tenon to hold the top. Once you part off, you'll have tenons on both sides. So let me show you. I think actually it makes sense at this point to say, all right, think about what fit you want. Do you want loose? Do you want tight? Do you want pop? And most people say, well, I really want to produce a pop because that just sounds good. It shows how skilled I am and all of those things. So let's go right to that point. And I've saved a little time, hopefully, to show you. Here's the two pieces that I've done after parting off. They are, and you'll see I did some decoration on the inside as well. That comes after you've got the lids to fit the way you want. So I have taken it down part way, and you're going to start with the lid. The lid goes in, and the tool that you want to use primarily, but not exclusively, is a scraper of one sort or another. Let's see. I have two. One is just a plain flat piece of steel with that angle, so that when you're going into the lid, you're not trying to do it all at the same time. That can lead to a catch. And certainly less than a 90-degree angle for the same purpose. You don't want the bottom and the side both hitting edges at the same time. That will produce a catch. You grind it with first of all on an angle to the main piece. Then you grind it at an angle from perpendicular to make it this sort of an angle. I'm exaggerating. Another tool is a round one, which I kind of like. It's ground the same way. There's the angle that's a little less than 90 from the extension of the tool. Same thing. I make it flat on top, angled on the side, angled both with respect to the straightness of the tool and the bottom. So, I don't know if that's coming across at all. Anyway, it's in the PowerPoint, and you'll be able to see it. So, where did I put my little? I can show it to you. Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. No, it's right here. So the main thing you want to do is to make sure that the side of the inside of the lid is totally straight, matching the waves. Visually, take a piece of metal, hollow out, lay the piece on the side, and just make sure that it's straight. This is pretty straight. You don't want it this way, you don't want it that way, you want it straight. And actually, I'm reversing my order. I think it is better to illustrate this, to do the bottom first. bottom sets the tone. I'm sorry, let's assume we've already done this. To get this part straight, an equal thing, and you can see that is not straight. Should be here. Why did I do that? Because if I want a tight fit, I have to figure out slowly, very slowly, how this will fit together. This doesn't do it. What I have done is create the recess and left a very sharp angle at the very end. Now you can take your top, you can turn your machine on, and you can rub it, and you'll see a mark. So you know that this extent, that's why it doesn't fit, of course. So how do you deal with that? Variety of ways. Lathes are always peculiar, but you can go at it with any sort of a straight edge, including the side of a gouge. I tend to like something small, and I'll even show you a smaller roll gouge. I don't know if they get much smaller than this. But anyway, tool rest up close to the work. Get your lathe on, turned on, and I like to leave my tool rest flat for one simple reason. You're going to be doing this 100 times before you get a fit. So if you have to move the tool rest after every one, it's bothersome, at least to me. So I know from this mark that I just made by rubbing the inside here that that part will actually go into the lid, but it's probably going to be loose. So what I want to do is, and this is a little off center, I can see, but just with the smallest amount of cutting, scraping actually. Now see how close we are. A little more. Hold on. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. These ways aren't big enough.
Is there a reason why you put the male part of the lip on the base? You do it either way?
No, you can do it either way. I don't know why I do it that way. This seems to work. First of all, you can, it's easier to see how this is fitting than trying to do it with marks on the inside of here. I think it's just a little easier, not a lot. On Bill Hopkins' 1830, that is much bigger. So that's what I'm used to these days. So again, just take a slight amount. You think you're not taking anything, you are. So I know this is not going to fit ultimately because it's worked off center or something. Don't drop. So the tendency is once you start doing this and you get to about the 5th time, you say, damn, this is going too slow. So I'm just going to take off a little more this time. And then you go, ooh, ooh, ooh. That's it.
You don't get a free ticket though.
Not it'll both fall off.
Yeah, right.
This is not going to be a pop lid because it's off center. For some reason, it's not matching in the chuck. But anyway, that's not enough. I can see that it still needs some. And I'm trying to make this pretty much flat, even though I'm just touching it at a different point. I'm not really using the whole gouge. I'm not making a cut. I'm making a scrape.
And you'd rather use a bow gun for that than like a parting tool?
You can use anything you want. You can use a parting tool. You can use the tool that I just showed you, this angled, triple angled square. You can use anything that's got a moderately flat edge or moderately straight. I don't think you need it perfectly straight because you'll wind up doing the whole thing and you don't want that at one time. So we're better. It just takes time. A little more. And you can see I'm trying to do it fast. Pretty soon this will be a loose fitting. Like right there. Okay, so pop? No. Because I did take too much. So that's the approach, and it takes more time than I've given it to get the perfect fit. But that's good enough. And the reason it's good enough is that once we get into this process, this is going to be my jam chuck for finishing the top of the bowl. And you might have to use a Kleenex or a paper towel, but whatever, you can get it to be on there, or you can bring the tailstock up. Okay.
When you lacquer it, will it make it better?
Yes, and go back to my first slide, tricks. Tips, tools, and tricks. Threes. Yes, you can do that. That will help, but you'll be surprised, not a lot. You can't take a loose fitting one and make it into a tight one. The trick that you can think about is really thin super glue. And you don't want to put it on the outside because then it's obvious. Where do you put it? You just take your tip. Let's see if I have one hand. I won't actually use it, but if you can see this, just get it very lightly covered with CA and run it around the inside. And before it dries, it's delicate timing, rub it, just rub it around. And it will leave some on this, the inside, and it will also make it evenly distributed. One thing you don't want to do is think, well, I'll go sand this and make it real smooth. No. Don't touch sandpaper to either of these surfaces. They have cuts and they have to remain cuts. If you start making sandpaper, it will get wavy. You will not have a fit at all. Okay. So let's take a look at how to deal with the inside of both the top and the bottom. Bear in mind, we still have our tenons on. We're still ready to go. And I'm going to take another piece of wood to actually work on this, which I've already started. Try to show you a variety. Every lathe is different, isn't it? One-ways, jets, novas. Unbelievable. I always tend, by the way, once you've made your tenon and tightened it down once, there are impressions in here. And it makes a difference whether those fit in your chuck. So I always mark between number 1 and number 4 on the jaws with a pencil. And as you're tightening, start with your pencil mark in the middle and just give it a little until you feel it click on your previous indent. Then press in and then hit. Always told, tighten 4 times. And the reason, you will feel it. It actually gets tighter the 3rd and the 4th time. That can't be. These are not mechanics chucks. These are wood turning chucks. Okay, so what do I want to do is okay. Closeness to the piece is important. Height is important. I can take either one of these tools that I've used before and scrape. I'm going to scrape on the inside. Typically, you want a ledge after the top, between the top and the side. Again, make any difference. And just be able to go straight in. And I'll enlarge this just for the point of showing how I get both the inside ledge and how I can make that ledge any height I want. And I can do it 2 or 3 times. For decorative purposes, just like I did on this one.
Sorry.
Okay. So that's what I'm doing here if I went straight ahead and I wanted this design. If you don't, fine. You might say, what I'd like to have is a curve. Now, curves are a little more difficult. So how do you get them? There are many ways, several different tools. This is simply a piece of steel inserted into a steel rod that you drilled out with good bits and superglued it in. Strangely, that's enough. And then grind it. Your grind is to leave you a cutting edge on this side so that you can pull towards you. That's one. This is David Ellsworth, I think, came up with the concept. This is a Trent Bosch improvement. That's one option. Another option, which I like to use, and most people don't, is something called a hook tool. And this is available on the web at various places. Michael Hassellick actually talked about it, or does a lot of the work. And it has a very sharp edge. And if you look at it, it's like the part we're going to use is kind of like a gouge edge, except we're going to use it upside down. And that gives you downward pull and a slice as you're coming around. And bear in mind, this is all end grain, so you can slice it. And let's see how this works. I might have trouble starting it because you usually need to have a deeper hole to start with. And you need to have your tool rest back far enough that you're not stuck on your junction. I bought this very heavy duty thing from a supplier on the web whose name I can't remember, but Todd Rains. And it works. So I don't know if the camera can see that at all. All right, so hold on to it. Start just at the center. And the reason I like this is that it's slow. And as I lean over and let it cut, I can make a curve. So if I don't want to top with a bunch of those ridges in it, I can just take this all the way out to the edge and gradually pull it as I get close. That was a little too fast. And we're off center, so this is going to jump a bit. But you basically have it in, turn it sideways, lean into what should be a hole board here, and start pulling it and adjust it until it catches. Once it catches, it just flows right out. So that gives you a rounded bottom. And I use rounded bottoms, I use rounded tops. This is an example of, the Vir.1 approach. That's just a nice, smooth cut all the way through. Same with the dot. Very simple, very straightforward, very easy. You can do other things. There's a whole bunch of ways to approach this, including getting to a point where you're actually able to scrape. And so you can use this kind of a scraper. I should have a handle on it, but I don't. I use I can't think of the name of it.
Negative rate.
Negative rate, okay, on both sides. But I'm only going to use the curved side because a pointed scraper will, guess what, gouge you. So I should have a handle. I'm not going to. I'm going to be above center and just barely move it. And again, you can hear that this piece of wood has shifted since I cut it. To come out. Oh, but anyway, that's another way to get a perfectly round bottom. We did talk about how to put designs in like this. Okay. There are other things you can use too. I should mention them very briefly. People who do boring vessels, hollow vessels, this length, maybe even this big, need a heavy steel boring bar. But there are tools that you can use to minimize the catch. They have a cutting bar below the cover. The cover is adjustable, so you can decide how much wood you want to take off and how fast, and whether you're going to get a catch. So experiment with that. There's a little set screw, and you just make your adjustment. There's a little adjustment here. I don't remember the name of this, and I don't use it anymore because this is so much better. This is called a Raleigh Monroe. He's a New Zealander. He's a tool maker and a hollowing fiend. And he uses this setup. It's a carbide steel, so you're all familiar with those. A lot of people use those kinds of hollowing tools or even straight cutting tools. That is carbide, so it'll last a long time. And it rotates so that you wear out one side and you use the other. And it has a feed, an out feed, that is better than whatever the other one was. It throws the chips out and away from the cutting head, so you don't get this buildup and have it jumping all around. Virtually infinitely adjustable. This fits on a bar, the bar fits into a handle, and these are movable and adjustable. You can make it virtually straight by changing the set screw. And I don't recommend it for this, but I thought I would just say if you get to a point where you're making a big box and you need to go deep to the bottom, that will be helpful. Okay. It's on the website. There are a bunch of scrapers, all of which do pretty much the same thing. I've talked about these two before. So we went through marking and parting. I think given the time, I'm not going to bore you with parting. I've already done that. I would use what's called a thin parting tool. And why? That's because I don't want to lose too much wood to disturb the visual element of the flow of the grain. So it's going to be cut through here. There are other, better, newer, fancier carbide tipped ones, but whatever, do the job. As you're parting, remember to watch out for a catch. And the way I do that is typically just rock back and forth on my feet and use my fingers to tip. So start in, move this way, this way, this way, keep it straight and vertical. At some point you want to push in slightly on an angle, pull out, push in slightly on an angle so that it doesn't bind and turn on fire as you get to the center and the heat builds up. Okay, good to pay attention to that. It's not easy. It's harder than I often think. Okay, so the process of working on the inside, I want to show that. Oh, where did we, yeah, here we go. The very first place to start, and I'm sorry we're going backwards on this, but let me show you a piece of wood that, well, I'm not going to do it. Time-wise, it just isn't going to fit. So typically what you do is to put your solid piece of wood on. Let's pretend this has been parted off. Well, actually, we have that piece. So, yeah, here it is. What's my time situation?
Got about 30 minutes.
10:05.
Oh,
2 hours to go.
sorry, not gonna do that. So we're gonna pretend, and Wells, do I have yours? Yeah, we're gonna pretend that this is the top or the bottom, it doesn't make any difference. And the first project is to bore a hole that will let you get started with hollowing with whatever tool you're going to use to hollow. Get your tool rest about at this height. A little faster. I typically work about 1,900 RPMs. It just makes things easier. So the first thing is to take off your dimple that you use from centering to make your tang. By the way, if you're faced with this situation, you know you have to go back to the roughing gouge or a nice big heavy bowl gouge and get that thing perfectly smooth. We won't waste time on that today. But anyway, Wells and I've been getting instruction from Wells about how to do this because I can't do it. It doesn't work. Anyway, I think we decided that we need to take this off. Otherwise, you have a nice gouge in your elbow. All right, Wells, tell me. Is that straight in? Okay. Do you move this way? Twist. Mine isn't. Oh, there he goes. All right. So it feels like I'm pushing the headstock off. It's way too much force, isn't it? Hmm?
Use a drill bit.
What?
Drill.
Yes, well I do, but I don't have that with me. That's back in Evans. Yeah, I use a drill chuck that has the Morse taper that fits in the tailstock.
Rotate it to the left. Don't have the foot straight up. Put it at about 20.
All right, I think I'm doing that. Ah, there it goes. Helps to take it out. Okay. that's step one. Step two is to remove wood in any which way you want to. I use my Ellsworth gouge. You can go with this. Wow, that's a funny non-catch, isn't it? Oop. You know what this is? Gripping? Grips, but then it moves. Okay, so go at it. Get into your hole. And at this point, you can decide to use your hook tool. Or you can decide to use your Trent Bosch little teeny itsy bitsy scraper. Put it on the hole and just pull to the side. It's very fast. The only negative, it's not smooth. This is a pure scrape. This is not a cut. Again, for the most part, you can create a curve. Getting too far off the tool rest means you gotta put some body weight on it. Okay, you get the idea. I'm not gonna try for perfection. Then if you want a square, let's go for this one. Square bottom. Start at the center. You need to be a little above center to not get a catch. So raise your tool rest just a teeny bit. I'm just using the very tip of this, not the whole thing. You get a catch if you do. So I'm pushing to the side with the raising. And if I want to make a square bottom, which I do, hold onto this tool. And you can go back and forth on the inside. And pretty soon, voila, you have a square bottom. I'll pass this around so you can take a look at it. Ain't perfect, but you get the idea.
When you were going in and out, you were still just doing the tip.
Yes.
Have you ever used that hollow, circular, I think it's called a hollowing tool? Has anyone ever used one? Yeah, does that,
He was using that earlier.
it's like a donut on the end.
Oh, that's the one way. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What?
Termite.
Termite. That's a termite. You know, the hook tool does that just as well, but it's open-ended, and so you don't get clogged so much. But that works. I haven't really used it extensively myself, but it works. Okay, time-wise, 2 more minutes. Okay. All right, let's see if I've got any great tips that I
You got
haven't
till
given you yet. What? Well, let's do a little bit of grooving and beating just to show you how that works. Where's my brain? I need my chuck. Or my chuck key. There it is. just going to show you a couple of right turn, left turn, I don't know. Why can't lathe makers agree on a standard? So let's try the simple beading tool. It's the safest. So again, this one you're going to work from the center out. So don't be afraid of digging in right there. Now you can start to rotate around. Visually, pick your distance for the next bead and see what happens. This does give you a lot of room, versatility for workaround to round it off. I just love this. It's like it's the simplest tool you can imagine in woodshop. It scrapes off the top of those beads just wonderful. Not saying this is perfect, but close. Okay. The other thing to make grooves, I use a lot of grooves. These all have grooves. And they're great for the final trip. Let's take my little parting tool. This just push in straight. You don't have to be afraid of it. But you can mark them if you want. I'm quite happy with not being perfect and just eyeballing it. That is far from perfect. Now with that, you can move yourself to an advanced tool. This is the wire burner. Make your handles if you like. This is stainless steel wire. I've tried some other stuff and it actually melts. So this is going to go in the groove. Tension. Put it straight down in there. Pull down and lo and behold, you have a black mark. Just like that. Don't forget, this is hot. Roy, pass that around. Okay, 2 more minutes. All right, so finish the box. Use the jam chuck. Use your tailstock. I like to use an insert into my tailstock that is basically wood, which of course I can't find now. But anyway, something like this. This is going to go into your shouldn't right now. So this lets you cut through this as well as the wood that you want to get to. All right, I'm going to talk just a few minutes about some other stuff here. There's always redesign opportunities, and I'll show you a couple of mine. One is this one. So I made the beautiful, step-up pieces. Really thought it was fine. It's not a friction fit. It's not a tight fit. And somehow I'm like, this feels kind of funny. So I looked at it through the light. You can't see it, but there's a ridge of light. So, well, that lid's done. I'm not going to put this out there. So I just decided to take one of these, add some other extension to this. So I fit that on and then made little beads. So I got 3 beads all together. You can match the wood up. Beautiful. Then, while I was working on the top, made a donut, made a funnel. So, what do you do with that? Well, I took a piece of contrasting wood, walnut. I'm not sure it's set on quite like it should be, but in any event, that was save number 1. Actually, number 2, because that is a save. The wiring stuff, beading stuff we just did. I like burnt all over the place. This was put in with your little parting tool. This was put in with the beading tool. Other than that, these are pretty standard boxes. Round bottom, round top. I did put something fancy, really fancy in the top of this. Because it's big and you can get to it. Otherwise, putting designs in is for pros. This little guy, well, I don't know if you know what the wood is, but I don't remember.
It's nice figured maple.
Figured maple. It's beautiful. I'm just like, that's popping, it's grainy all over. So I think I showed you how you part this off. Finish your bottom. Put this mortise on your chuck and round it, testing all the time. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this mortise? It's just, I don't know, it doesn't look right. So I was walking down Ocean View and saw this little pine cone. I thought, gee, let's see. So you do a walnut insert. Basically get your piece of walnut up here, size it to go into your mortise, put it in, glue it, cut it off, and glue it. And then I just ran the pine cone over a piece of sandpaper to make it flat enough for epoxy to work. Okay, more stuff. I think we're done. Oh, I was going to show you this. This is Morgan Taylor's insert. I don't know if he did that because he was threading or for decorative purposes, but that kind of concept will work on top, bottom, and joint. You can always put a contrasting, if you really want a pop lid, you can play with this all day until you get it. Put a new piece of wood on, get it fit, cut it off, try to fit again. Hopefully one of those will work. Then you can glue up. These are things I've done over the years. It's, nothing wildly outstanding. Some of these are repeats. This is a variation of the bin fold. Oh, the one other trick I've got to show you, or at least tell you about. We don't have time to do it all. But you have to create this post so that your donut stone, and really they call them donut stones, will slip down over, and you want a whole board in the middle so that you can insert any kind of twigs that you find around the house to make it, so you get the illusion. That will go through here. Well, it won't go through here because you're going to cut it off. You put one part on one side and the other part on the other side. So that's cheating, yeah. Well, you can devote a lifetime to grafting and get your trees to do it just right. No. The one tip about this post, which you're wanting to get is about that small for almost all of these gem, stone, donut cuts, hollowed out cabochons, I call them, is that you need to get that drill through the center. If you take it down to this diameter before you try to drill it, the drill is going to go every which way. You can't possibly get it straight. Strategy, leave the tenon big. Big enough that you can take your drill and eyeball. I usually do happy with eyeballing. Find the center of that post and go ahead and drill it. Once you're through, then put it back on. Turn this post down to the right size of your donut cabochon, put it on. And you want to hollow out a recess so this little stone sits on perfectly. And away we go. All right. Questions? Questions?
I have a question. So if you're gonna add, or you said the little stone donut or the I love that, the little pine cone. What glue do you use to, is it depending on the material?
Yeah, the stone, it's not gonna go anywhere, just put CA glue. This has way too much CA glue, you can use a lot less to make it smooth. For the walnut insert, the pine cone on top of it, epoxy.
What about something like a shell or something?
I think you can do anything like it. I looked at people's websites. John had a box with a natural edge, which you all know I love, and a set-in lid, and an elegant little twist of a piece of wood. You had to carve that, right?
It's turned to this shape and then sanded off.
And then sand.
And it's antlers.
So, I mean, you can put a gazillion things on it. I'm not a finial guy. I just can't do them, so why waste my time? Too old for that. But anyway, you can, walking around on the street, beer can might look odd. All right, other questions?
Do you use mostly kiln dried wood?
Absolutely, yeah. I mentioned that,
I missed that.
we've talked about moisture, and even if that's totally kiln dried, and then you cut the lid and the base and you got them fit, and you walk away from it, less than an hour, it'll be most of the time oblong in some way, shape, or form. This is, I've got several examples of that. This is, oh wow, that's a tight fit, isn't it? Well, no, it isn't. If you rotate it, it's just, what happened? What happened? Well, it worked. And the color went away. So that's another trick, another tip. Ben Faux, in all of his elegant, fantastic, unbelievable work, if you don't know it, you should get the book and take a look. It's mind-boggling. Ben said, well, UV light is going to take the color out of our box elder, which we cherish the box elder because of that color. Well, Ben, in addition to being a master of piercing and spray painting, he said, why not just take some red in my little airbrushing tool and just, with a delicate touch, just lay a nice coat of the same red. And I've done that. I'm not ashamed to admit it. If you want the red on the outside, this is what you get after 10 years. It's great. That used to be red. There's the inside, no UV on that. You love the spalting and the red. Terrific.
It's actually more dramatic. It's not there and then it's there.
Right. Well,
The unveiling.
okay. Yeah, I put this under UV light for a month, and look what happened. No. It was 10 years worth of sitting on my daughter's shelf.
Question. So I've noticed that some lacquers have a label on them that says UV protection. Have you ever tried that?
I have not.
Anybody else
I
perhaps?
have not. Yeah, finishing
I've
I
done
did.
some of that.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, it helps.
That's another tip I forgot. Typically, when you're finishing the top, you've got it all set. That's the time to sand it. Use your sandpaper in here, lay at fairly low speed, and the time to put the finish on. I have a can of sealing, sanding sealer lacquer. put it on, turn the lathe on, put your cloth in there, and it's amazing. You can come back later and put a spray finish on it. I think this is a spray finish, I'm not sure. But then even with that, you need the steel wall or some other approach to it. I think the outside, I usually go crazy with the finish, and that is I will put on, I use a buffing wheel, the Deal system, rouge, diamond, wax. And when I put the wax on, I use brie wax or tree wax or something, and rub the carnauba onto the buffing wheel and then polish it. And then the final is Renaissance wax. I don't know if you've seen this. Craft Supplies and others have a little can which will surely last you a lifetime, and you can pass it on to your heirs. But it is called museum quality wax, and that means your fingerprints won't show on it, whereas most wax will. And it's simple, wipe on a thin coat, take your paper towel, and it's wow, it pops, and you can pick it up.
And is all of this food safe or safe if you're using it for salt?
I think it is, but I don't really know. No warranties, no lawsuits.
Yeah, right.
For a box, it's not a problem.
Small portions of soup, right? Okay, enough lawyering. Sorry to have run over. Wells told me I would, but.
You're fine. You're fine. You're not cast in stone here, so thank goodness. We don't have a big bell that's gonna go off and say, time's up.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Tom, for bringing all this wonderful stuff. And
okay.
I think we all learned something, no matter which person you are. I think we learned something.
Yeah, I used to, the Chicago Woodturners does lots of guest demos, and we charge members, we say, we're gonna have someone here all day, like Michael Hasselhoff, or
Sure.
there actually was one other thing I would like to talk about. But these people come in, they're going on their way to the AEW meeting or something, so we get them for a day. But we have to pay. We decided to get some compensation for this, for the demonstrators.
No,
And
absolutely.
one of the good idea. The problem is we have lathes set up in the whole room for the day. That's hard here. But anyway, good friend of the president of the club would always be sitting there watching, and the demonstrator would do something. He said, "That's worth the price of admission."